Welcome. We're going to go through all of the studio LPs, 3-part series, 4-part series, not sure yet. There will be no music being played, of his music being played during these videos, with the exception of, if necessary, some very rare things, but that would be a little bit down the road. And there's not going to be a conclusion segment where I'm ranking the LPs, mainly because I've not listened to all of them all the way through, so I'm not prepared to do that, at least not yet. And you're looking at the 1957 release on the Imperial label, Ricky. Imperial, which he would be with for the next 6 years or so. Now, we're going to take a look at the back of this, and that's the track listing right there. Now, you might be wondering where the song I'm Walking is. It was not on this LP. So leading up to this, there was the single, his very first single, I'm Walking, which went to number 4 on the Billboard charts. The flip side was A Teenager's Romance, and that one nearly went to number 1. That was number 2 on the charts. That single released in April of 1957. And there was a follow-up single, You're My One and Only Love, and that one did very well too. It was released in July of 57. That one went to number 14 on the chart. So you will not see any of those songs on this LP. It might be on the one, if there was a re-release, a CD re-release of this, it might be included as extra tracks, but those 3 top 20 hits were on 45 singles, and they were also on the Verve label. And this was the this was the debut LP, Ricky, on the Imperial label. And what you see here is a lot of this rockabilly. It probably as raw as you'll get from this artist. You're gonna see some natural pop instincts and a real kind of a rock and roll feel that kind of set him apart from this group of Elvis impersonators that were coming around at the time. So you have songs like there's a Jerry Lee Lewis cover, his hero, his icon, Carl Perkins, Honeycomb. I'm sorry, not Honeycomb. Your True Love was a Carl Perkins cover. Honeycomb was Jimmy Rogers, who was kind of a country guy. So there's some kind of relaxed covers on this, but it's got that guitar sound on there too. What you're also going to see on this is him going back a generation, and that's a theme that you see on the next probably the next 8 years or so on his LPs. Have I Told You Lately That I Love You is from 1945, and this one went to number 29 on the charts as well. Am I Blue was from 1929, and I'm Confessin' is from 1930. You also have the Cole Porter song True Love, which is the last track. And as I pointed this out in another video, George Harrison recorded Cole Porter's True Love on his 1976 LP 33 and a Third. Kind of an interesting connection there. But you see some of these older songs, and it's really kind of from the Ozzie Nelson catalog, so it's really his influence is why those songs are on there, and why a lot of these older songs with some updating sound are going to appear on several of his albums up to even into the Decca period. I shouldn't say influence, but more like Ozzy's direction, because he was making a lot of decisions here as what was to be played, especially early on. All right, and then the last song on the A side, "If You Can't Rock Me," charted too. It was exactly 100 on the Billboard charts. And as for the album itself, it went to #1 on the charts. So if it wasn't for the success of those two singles, which I mentioned earlier, you probably wouldn't even have had this album or any of the albums to come. So there was a lot of excitement from those singles and obviously from the performances, at least the "I'm Walking" performance on the TV show, that sent a lot of people running to the stores to get his debut LP. Let's take a look at the his follow up. First, let me just mention that on the debut album, the song "Bebop Baby" went to #3 on the billboards. So that was his second biggest hit up to this point. All right, now let's look at the follow up LP. And the follow up was the 1958 release called "Ricky Nelson," also on the Imperial label, and he's still trying to imitate some of that Sun Records rockabilly style on this sophomore LP. But there's some differences here. You start to he starts to get his own band. So this is where he discovered his guitarist, who would be his guitarist over the next 10 years, James Burton, who should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And he also got a bass player and a drummer, and he became more involved as a vocalist. We'll take a look at the tracks here. Okay, right there. I'm showing you screenshots because I do not own this LP. So you have some Elvis type song with "There's Good Rockin' Tonight," a Roy Orbison type song with "Down the Line." Again, that Sun sound. And he went back to the well on a Fats Domino cover. Of course, he did the crossover cover of "I'm Walking," but he does the Fats song "I'm in Love Again," and he even does a Little Walter cover with "Ma Babe," which was also a Bo Diddley song. So this is also the beginning of introducing songwriting within his own band. So you had James Burton, and then the bass player James Kirkland. They co-wrote the song "There Goes My Baby," which is a good song. It didn't chart, but you also in this song you hear in the last chorus, Rick does a sort of a yelling in the chorus, and it's kind of significant. You're showing some brimming confidence from the 18-year-old. And he also in this album you see, or we see our very first look at Rick Nelson himself as a songwriter, and that's in the song "Don't Leave Me This Way." It didn't chart either, but it's a good song, especially for someone his age, and it wasn't completely forgotten. He apparently was proud of it because he redid it in his 1983, I believe, album called "All My Best," which I think came out after his death, but where he re-recorded some of his old songs, and that made the cut. So that was kind of cool, and that version is good too. And once again, you're gonna see some of these like tricked out pop covers from the past. The 1940 song "Someday You'll Want Me to Want You," I'm sure you know that song. And then the 1944 track "I'll Walk Alone." And then last but not least, the Shelley, what was her name? The Sharon Sheeley penned song "Poor Little Fool," which was a little different from what he'd been doing, and it was one that he intentionally buried at the bottom of this LP. It was not released as a single, but radio stations started playing it, and it became his first two number one hits. So the album itself went to number 10 on the charts. A very nice second album. All right, the third album was released in January of 1959. It was called Ricky Sings Again, also on the Imperial label. And this was had a lot of still that rockabilly sound. He's still developing as an artist and as a singer, but he's more confident in the vocals mainly because of he had some not touring but quite a quite a bit of performing under his belt and a little bit of road work, so that helped him. So there were two singles that came out before the release of this album, both in 1958. The first one was Believe What You Say, which went to number 4 on the charts. The second one was Lonesome Town, which went to number 7 on the charts. So here we see the introduction of the Dorsey and Johnny Burnett writing team. They're also musicians themselves. Johnny, of course, had the hit "You're 16," among others. They were prominent in the 50s and into the early 60s music scene, but they wrote the first 3 tracks on this LP. The first one, "It's Late," which went to number 9 on the charts, and then "One of These Mornings," which did not chart, but it was a very underrated song. "Believe What You Say" went to was also written by Dorsey. These 3 were primarily written by Dorsey Burnett. You also see the introduction of Baker Knight, who came onto the scene with the song. He wrote the song "Lonesome Town," which was number 7 on the charts. He also wrote Never Be Anyone Else But You," which went to number 6 on the charts. And he also wrote "You Tear Me Up." And outside of that, you have a Johnny Cash cover, "Restless Kid," and a Hank Williams cover, "I Can't Help It If I'm Still in Love With You." So all these songs were tailored to Nelson, but at the same time, they were kind of in the same style of what was popular at the time. Like, for example, "It's Late" had the subject matter and kind of the sound of it was similar to the Everly Brothers' "Wake Up Little Susie." And at this point, he was really coming along, and this is where you really see the prominence of James Burton's guitar. So the two of them really became a great team over the next several years. With Ricky's smooth voice, he tended to understate some of the vocals. But when you added the James Burton's twangy and fierce and exuberant guitar solos, it was a nice little. It had a nice little tension to the tracks, as well as it was the good yin to the yang kind of thing. So this was a very good third LP by Nelson with 4 top 10 hits on it. The bar had certainly been raised. And the album itself made it to number 14 on the charts. So, and I mentioned the one before this, entitled Ricky Nelson. That one went to, I said that was 10, but that actually was 7 on the charts. And so the next one will be, this is a reissue LP, by the way. That's why it looks so clean. This is not the original 1959 release. Thought I had another copy of this. So this is the original release of this album in stereo, and you'll notice some of the tracks are different on this one. A couple of different ones, like "Be True to Me" and trying, and I think, yeah, I know "Be True to Me" was originally on it, and also the Tommy Edwards song "It's All in the Game," It didn't chart either, but um, oh, if you want to see a video on where Tommy Edwards is buried, I've also got a separate video on that. So, but there it is, the original one of Ricky Sings Again. All right, the fourth LP was another 1959 release called Songs by Ricky, also on the, we're still on the Imperial label, of course. Okay, and I don't have this one on LP, unfortunately. It went to number 22 on the charts. We'll take a look at the track listing. And so again, Baker Knight, the writer, is all over this one. You'll Never Know What You're Missing, Sweeter Than You, 1 minute to 1. He wrote all three of those, as are the Burnett's, who wrote You're So Fine, Don't Leave Me, A Long Vacation, I've Been Thinking, and Just a Little Too Much. Just a Little Too Much and Sweeter Than You both went to number 9 on the charts. So this was another very good album by Nelson. Look at the label on one side. So the result here is a consistent record, nice writing, nice performing. Everyone kind of at their peak. A lot of good contributions to a good rhythmic and smooth development of a sound there, and Nelson had definitely turned into a very nice vocalist at this point, and he had a real good sense of what he wanted as far as his material. So it still had maybe a little too much of the teen sentiments in there, and working towards kind of a softer sound, but it still had a good bit of rockabilly, and this was a good LP. And all right, the next one is called More Songs by Ricky. So as we move into the 1960s, this is from 1960, and this is one where he kind of shifted gears a little bit. So for one, Johnny and Dorsey Burnett left to do their own solo careers, which was inevitable, so they weren't really available to him at all. They did provide one song called Hey Pretty Baby, which didn't chart. Baker Knight, who I mentioned in the previous two albums, he had a few songs on the LP, but he was kind of adapting to the new style. He did Ain't Nothing But Love, and then Here I Go Again, which sounded more like something that would be for like Lloyd Price with the horns and stuff. And so the horns became something big on this album for some reason, particularly a saxophone that took some of the solos. And so without having the Burnetts there, Nelson turned back to the Ozman to sort of do some of the band leading, and he went back to cutting some old songs. We'll take a look at the track listing. Okay, so we'll take a look at side 1 there. So Baby Won't You Please Come Home, and I'd Climb the Highest Mountain are both 1920 songs. There's side 2. Time After Time and Again were both from the 40s, and then When Your Lover Has Gone was from the 1930s. So again, these old songs again that the Ozman suggested. They added some horns and strings as well as some chirpy female backup vocals. So it was a change from his previous recordings. But overall, this did not do anything to hurt his fortunes, as this LP went to number 18 on the charts. And so in the next video, we will take a look at some more from the Imperial label. Probably finish off the Imperial recordings. So hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you for part 2.